Welcome to Her Love of Sports with your host, Katie Hamilton.
Welcome to Her Love of Sports Community Spotlight. Our guest today's dedication, hard work, and passion for the sport has inspired many as she continues to be a role model for athletes everywhere. Her achievements are nothing short of impressive, including having won a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games and securing a silver and bronze medal at the World Triathlon Para Series. Emma Skaug, welcome to Her Love of Sports. Thanks so much for joining us, and how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, honestly, to be selected to be a part of something like this. So thank you.
Awesome. I'm so glad we got it all scheduled and ready to go. And so a little backstory. So with Her Love of Sports, we did a Women and Girls in Sport game at a professional sports club here. And we invite women in sports, just all around, coaches, athletes, members in the community to come be our special VIP guests. And I came across you and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to invite Emma and your partner at the time, we'll get into, Jessica, to come be one of our VIPs. So that's how we got connected. And then when we got to this community spotlight, I was just like, you would be perfect to connect with and really tell your story, because I think it's so wonderful, all the things you do in the community. There's so much to talk about for the different areas that you're in. So let's just start somewhere. How did you get into sport and what kind of is your different roles?
Well, man, this goes go way back. So I'm going to be 24 this year, but I started playing actually soccer when I was 4 years old. I was one of those little kids who's running around the field, tripping over the ball with their dad as their coach. And there was just community, those community teams. And I played soccer until I was 14 years old. And then I decided I needed a little bit of change of pace in the sporting world. And I really I'd started running with my dad when I was like 11 or 12 and had done a couple of 5-kilometer races and thought it was just super fun to be out there kind of alone and just you and your feet and just see what you're made of and see what you can do in an event where it's really you're the only person that you're relying on. So I got kind of excited about maybe I should try an individual sport versus the team sport that I had played on before. And so I had a friend in school who did triathlon. And at the time I was like, what's triathlon? Like, I thought it was only Ironman, which is the longest distance you can do. It's about a 8-hour race if you're a professional athlete versus a lot of amateur athletes will take upwards of 12, 14, or almost 16 hours to complete this kind of race. And that's the only thing I knew about a triathlon versus I had a friend who did triathlon and it was a little 30-minute race for kids to do. And it sounded like a lot of fun. So I started training for that. Did decently well off the bat as a youth athlete, then started racing across Canada as a junior. And then I moved out to Victoria here to come train in the National Academy group. So it's supposed to be a pipeline between successful junior athletes, but athletes who aren't quite ready for the national team, but a place where you can develop your skills and really mature as an athlete. So moved out to Victoria to join that group. And that was, so now fast forward all the way to 2018 when I was graduating high school. So yeah, I came from a 14-year-old youth having fun on a bike and running around and playing in the pool to someone who's trying to pursue sport at more of an elite and professional level. And then so I trained with that group for about 2 years, and then Paratriathlon recruited me to be a guide for Jessica Twomlow, which is kind of how we all eventually got connected. But yeah, so it was actually when COVID hit that I got recruited to the para team because Jess had a guide at the time, but the guide was mostly based out of Montreal. And then they couldn't do any interprovincial travel anymore to actually be able to train with one another and, develop those, not relationship, but when you're a guide and an athlete working together. So a guide, a sighted individual, and then a non-sighted individual working together to do something as hard as a triathlon, you really need to be able to work together really fluidly. So they weren't able to actually, interprovincial travel was banned with COVID. So then Jess was like, I don't have anyone to train with locally. And then at the time I was around and I was actually going at a point in sport where I was going to take a little bit of a break because I'd had a hard time with the level of training as well as starting university. So I was going to take a step back from sport. And then the para team came by and said like, hey, do you want to stay in triathlon a little longer and help us out and be a local training guide for our athlete? Because our main racing guide is across the country. We can't interprovincial travel, can't do that. So that sounded like a really wonderful opportunity to me to still keep a foot in the door. And then then I started training with Jess and being her local training guide, and that went on for a year. And then I transitioned into being her full-time training guide, and training and racing guide, and I did that for 2 more years.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that story, especially because triathlon and even just biking and swimming, they're not, at least for me growing up, they weren't sports that were available for me or like were
Yeah.
talked about enough to be like, oh, that's an option or that's something to
Yeah.
do. It was like it's the usual mainstream ones that we talk about, that are
Yeah.
the ones that is like, okay, that's where you start soccer, hockey, baseball, those kind of things.
Totally.
So to hear how you get into it and that those aren't options, I think it's really, really exciting. Just onto it, Victoria is interesting too because there's lots of different sports and it's outdoorsy, but
Yeah.
especially growing up, like I just said, growing up, it wasn't kind of right there in your face to be an option.
No.
But my cousins that are quite a bit younger than me live in Missoula, Montana.
Yeah.
They're really into it. They don't do triathlon, but biking's one of theirs. So like mountain
Cool.
biking and stuff.
Cycling is so big in Victoria, which it's one of the things I love about, like, since I moved here in 2018. It's just getting involved in the cycling community and doing group rides and doing off-road riding. It's been so much fun, and it just wasn't really a thing in Calgary,
Mhm.
mainly because like we just don't have the climate for it. 8 months of the year, the world is covered in snow.
Yeah.
Versus Victoria, you can ride year round. So we have a road racing series, a cyclocross racing series, and then a mountain bike racing series, and it's just year round bikes. It's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's go back to
Yeah.
being a guide. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So talk to me. What kind of does that role entail? What's the training? Is it once? Do you guys meet up once a month, once a week, once a day? Tell me about that.
I think, or I don't think, I know every situation you're going to find with a guide and an athlete in triathlon is going to be really, really unique for, the availability and the capacity that both the guide and the athlete have. Jess and I were super incredibly fortunate that we lived in the same city. Like we lived 15 minutes apart from one another. So we actually trained pretty intensively together. Actual guided sessions would be anywhere. Well, sorry, when I say guided sessions, that's times when I'm directly actually guiding Jess. So we're going on a run together, or we're going on a bike together, or we're in the pool and we're actually swimming tethered. It would be anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 guided sessions per week. And then throughout the whole week, we would be doing probably 10 to 13 training sessions. And then the rest of those would just be, we're both still doing training, but we're not directly guiding together. So I'd be swimming and she'd be swimming, but we'd both be just lane swimming.
Okay.
Or we do a bike workout, but they're on the trainer. So we're training beside each other, but we're not on the tandem outside together. And then in the gym too, we do 3 gym sessions a week, but I'm not guiding her during those gym sessions. So we train pretty much all of our sessions together. There's a few things that I did solo just because I was also taking my last few years of my bachelor's degree. So I couldn't meet up for everything, where I'd just have to do a run solo and she'd go run on the treadmill. But the weekends were pretty much 100% together. So we'd train like probably 5 or 6 hours every weekend together. And then 2 to 6 hours during the week together. But then this is in comparison to, we know like other athletes and guide pairs that we raced internationally. Some of them live in different like states in the United States. Like there's one the athlete lives in Colorado, and then someone else lives across the country, and then they get together and both fly into races and race together. And then a few times throughout the year, they come and do training camps together to work on working together as a pair. So I think Jess and I probably on the racing series, like within the world, probably had one of the most closely like intimate training relationships where we were working together all the time. And I think it really showed in our results and in our ability to really race as a team, and that we were so connected with how each other moved. But it was just something that we were really fortunate to have, and that with our training environment and just where we lived at the time, it just worked. Because it can be really, really hard to match up athletes and guides, in that guides have to be pretty high-level athletes themselves, but then they also have to be willing to put some of their own sporting goals. You can't prioritize all of your own sporting goals when you're guiding, because you're guiding, your goals need to be towards what races you're doing as a pair, and you need to center your training around that. So it unfortunately can be sometimes hard to find an athlete who wants to do that, because I just don't think there's enough exposure of how amazing of an opportunity is. And maybe, yeah, it's sometimes tough to find up like proper matching pairs, but we were really lucky that it was something that I was really interested in doing. And I'm hoping that maybe hearing about guiding and how much I loved it, and I really tried in the community while I was a guide to like show the other triathletes and other athletes that I've just were around, like how incredible of an opportunity and an experience it was, in hopes that people would start to get the bug and want to start working with athletes with visual impairments as well, and kind of get involved in that kind of sport. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's absolutely amazing. Like, I was so inspired and just blown away that, because I've never heard about that before. Of course, I try to follow like the Paralympics and stuff as much as I can.
Yeah.
But I never put two and two together about having a guide and everything that you have to go through. So when I read about you guys, read through some articles and stuff, I was just like blown away by how amazing it really is. So
it's so much fun. It's really, really hard. You're racing against some of the best athletes in the world. And so even as the guide, like I'm training as hard as I was training even when I was just racing in like the able-bodied categories, or on the Olympic side versus like training on the Paralympic side. It was just as intensive training, but but the race looks so different. And I don't know if there's as much like maybe like understanding between like the two, like Paralympics to Olympic, of Paralympic stream versus Olympic stream, and how much intensity there is in the Paralympic stream, and how absolutely competitive the Paralympic stream is. It was such a cool opportunity, and I think it made me such a stronger, more resourceful, more independent, more competitive athlete as well, like being able to have that opportunity to guide. Yeah.
I love that. Can we go over kind of a little bit more in depth of what the role is? So
totally.
For something a race that you're doing with Jessica, what entails? So there's biking, there's running, there's swimming.
Yeah.
And then how you individually and together. So can you just explain more about it?
Totally. So in a racing environment, Jess and I are going to be connected in some way throughout the entire race, and even throughout the entire day. Like we get up out of the hotel, we go and, we get our breakfast together, go back up to the room, we get our race stuff ready, and then we head down to transition. We set up transition together. I will set up the bike, and I'll put our helmet on the bike and our sunglasses on the bike. Well, because Jess has to wear blacked out sunglasses for her race because of the category that she's in. And then, so I set up transition, and then I show her where everything is. So I'll take her hands, and we feel everything, we touch everything, and we physically run through the direction of transition so Jess can get proper like orientation within the transition. And then when that's done, we go do our warm up, and then we get on the start line. And so on the start line, what it looks like is we have a rope that's around it's like got two loops on it, and my leg goes through one loop, and her leg goes through another loop, and it goes around our like upper thigh. So the tether is about 90 centimeters long in between, so just under a meter kind of thing. And then we jump into the water to start the race, and we start swimming, and Jess usually swims right beside me or right on my hip. And then if she feels the bubbles and the wake coming off of me, and like the disturbance that my body makes in the water, and then swims towards that so she can stay right beside me the whole time. And then if she like gets a little bit off track and starts swimming away from me, the tether will give a little bit of a pull, and then we're like, okay, and then she can just use the tension in the tether to find her way back to me.
This is so fascinating, by the way.
Yeah. It's really, really,
really
cool.
is.
And so then I'm swimming, and then I also making sure that like I'm trying to swim like at the right speed as well, and I'm sighting and guiding us towards the buoys and around the swim course.
So are you setting pace while you're doing it, or do you kind of know what her pace is?
There's very strict rules around like we can't get too far apart, or Jess can't get too far behind me, or it's going to look like I'm dragging her. And then if there's dragging, we are immediately disqualified. Like no warnings, nothing, you're out of the race. And that's in the swim portion. So it's really, really strict. So what we ensure is that every time I breathe, I look where she is, like every single stroke. And I look to see like, hey, where's Jess? Ideally, she's right in that pocket, right on my hip. If I feel a pull, that tug, we've kind of, gone to that outer reaches of how far apart we're allowed to be. And then I'll slow down a little bit, make sure we get back in sync, and then we can start going forward again. It's a mixture of I'm going to go as fast as I can with Jess, making sure Jess stays in that like right beside me.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just a knowledge of about how fast I can swim from training together. We practice race pace in the pool all the time. We practice race pace in the lake all the time. So I know about how fast and how hard it should feel to be going the pace that's going to be proper for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we go through the swim and then we get to transition. And what I usually do is I will tap her on the shoulder or on the head or whatever we have previously communicated is the proper cue. And then Jess is going to know that, okay, well, the end is literally right in front of me. I'm going to tap her. And then like one stroke later, she can expect to feel the sand or the dock to get out of the water. And then I give my arm as a support and she can grab onto my arm at this point in the race, and then we go through transition together. I essentially guide her right to the bike where her helmet is, and then she knows when she knows is like situated with her helmet, she remembers like and just knows what transition looks like because we ran through it all before the race. And so she's able to get her helmet on, get beside the bike, I unrack the bike, and then we head out towards the bike course.
And you're on different bikes or
a tandem
bike?
A tandem. Okay. So I'm in the front and Jess is in the back. So on a tandem, we call like Jess would be the stoker and I would be the pilot.
Okay.
We had a really, really cool tandem. It's a full on like racing bike. I think it was a carbon frame, so it was really, really lightweight. I think it was like less than 25 or 30 pounds for the whole bike, and it was a tandem
for the
bike.
two of you too.
Yeah, for the two of us. And then. Yeah, it was a really, really lovely bike. We had like Canadian maple leaves on it. It's red and white painted. It was so fast.
Amazing.
It was so much fun.
And you guys are ripping, right? Like it's not just a cruise. It's like you guys are going for it.
Yeah, we usually finish 20 kilometers in 40 minutes, which is about 40 kilometer per hour average for our speed the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fast. It was a lot of fun. So we start biking, and then pretty much what I do is I'm, of course, leading the bike, and then Jess is just pedaling her heart out the entire time. And then what I will do is call out corners, essentially. So I will be like, I'll yell coast, and then we, of course, stop pedaling. And then based on what pedal I have down and what pedal I have up, Jess is going to know which way we're turning because there's certain pedal positions you have to make it safe to turn. So if... Yeah, based on like what our foot position is, Jess knows which direction we're turning. And then I'll just yell like, okay, turning, or yeah, or right. And then Jess actually leans on the backside. She leans in towards the corner, takes her body off and like to the side of the bike. And what ends up happening is the whole bike tilts towards the direction that we're supposed to go. And then I didn't even really have to quote unquote turn the bike very much because Jess would do it for me. And I just guide the handlebars to make sure we stay on the line that we're supposed to be on. And then,
so you really have to be connected too, because if you're like not on the same track, you can maybe get a wipe out or something. Eh?
Totally. Yeah. And then sometimes we're like mid corner and I'd be like, okay, like, oh, lighten up or a little bit more because we have to make sure that we're like angling enough to turn the corner properly enough. And that's where it's just a little bit of give and take of how much I'm turning the handlebars, how much Jess is actually weighting the bike. And then with this, like sometimes I had aero bars on my bike as well. So aero bars are the bars that you see on time trial bikes. And they're the ones where you can rest on your forearms, kind of like this on the bike. Instead of having your hands widen on the hoods of the handlebars, you have your forearms down and you're bent over and you're tucked down and you're super aerodynamic. So with Jess steering in the back, I wouldn't even have to get out of that aero position to turn on the bike sometimes because she just leaned the bike leans, and I'm like, okay, we're done the corner. And then she goes back to center, the bike stops turning, and we keep pedaling forward.
Oh my gosh, this is so intense. I love this.
It was crazy, like the speed at which we went through corners and actually the stability that bike had and the momentum that we would carry, because with two people in a bike, it's almost just under a 300-pound vehicle that we're racing around. So it's like, it's a sizable size vehicle and a sizable amount of momentum. And we're both like pedaling as hard as we can for the whole 20K.
And it sounds like you're not just like if you're an individual, right? You can just focus in and it's just like you and your zone. But it almost sounds like when there's two of you, it's like there's so much communication
So
that two
much
of you
else
have,
going on.
like verbal, and then probably just with which goes to training with each other so much and having
Yes.
that relationship and connection of communicating that way too, of senses and just everything put together.
Yeah, and you're also working out as hard as you can.
Mhm.
So it's you don't want to speak. You don't really have a lot of air. So it's like, how few words can I say to still get the message across? And we just work so closely together that I don't have to say very much, but she knows exactly what's going on and exactly what I'm going to do. And she's absolutely fearless. Like, it wouldn't matter how fast we were going. If I said turn, Jess is going to lean her body into a corner and we're going to go. And I think we went around some corners. If we had a downhill and then going into a corner at probably 50, 60K an hour sometimes.
Oh my gosh. I'd be freaking out. I'd be like, I'd be like, Emma, get me through this.
No, the amount of trust that Jess placed in me to like let me take the bike, to like let me be on the front of the bike all the time, and to let me take her through the corners that quickly. It was incredible how much like trust she placed in me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then, well, the other aspect too is that you're not alone on the course. It's not just you. They would put all the female tandems, all the men's tandems would be on the course at the same time. And then later on into the bike, we'd actually get all of the standing classes as well. So the standing classes would be officially PTS 2 through PTS 5, but that's going to be various like amputee classes. And then, so they're all these single bikes. So our courses often too weren't just one 20K loop. They were often 4 by 5 kilometer loops. So you go around in circles like 4 times. But then all these races are going. So you're on like a 5-kilometer circuit with like 15 men's bikes, 15 female bikes, and all the other standing classes. So you're racing, you're navigating all the other bikes, you're taking quite technical, hard turns, and you're also doing this while you're going pretty much as hard as like you can for that amount of time. So there's a lot going on out there. And then you're also communicating with the person who's also on the bike with you.
Right.
And then you're also not allowed to draft other people, so you can't get too close to other racers.
Okay.
So sometimes we'd be coming up on another bike. I'd have to go into the passing lane, yell to Jess like, hey, we got to pedal hard, give me a hard 20 pedal strokes, help me accelerate, get by this guy, and then we go back into our lane and we can settle back into our like race, our more sustainable race pace.
Right. Okay.
So there's a lot going on out there, but it was so much fun. It was
like
almost in a way reminded me sometimes of Mario Kart, honestly.
Yes.
Lots of consequences if you crash. You don't just get to like, get picked up and put back on the course.
You like twirl around for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. But there's just so much going on. It's so fast. It's so much fun. And it was it was totally a race. It was such a game. It was such a race. It was, it's nothing like I've never done anything like it, and I don't think I will never do anything like it again. Just the uniqueness that was a para-triathlon bike section of a course. It was so cool.
Because then you transition into the running portion.
Yes,
and that's usually the final.
That's the final piece. So triathlons are always swim, then bike, then run. They doesn't ever change. So we get off the bike. What we do is we actually take our feet out of our shoes while we're on the bike, and I'll tell Jess when that's safe to do so. So we coast, and then we reach down, we unstrap our shoes, we take our feet out of our shoes, and then we put our feet on top of our shoes, and then we pedal into transition like that. So that allows us to hop off the bike really quickly. So we get to the transition line, hop off the bike, run with the bike into transition, rack the bike. I show Jess where her shoes are. I put my own shoes on, and then we grab a little rope. And then this is the last tether that we have. And it's a little rope that has 2 little loops on it, and we just put our thumbs through the little loop, and that the rope rest in our hand. Okay. And then we just run step by step, like in stride with one another, perfectly matching each other's steps so that we're in sync with one another, and I can lean into her whenever I need to, or she can lean into me whenever she needs to get around corners. And then we're not going to like knock elbows with each other kind of thing. And the other thing on the run course is that I'm actually not ever, as a guide, I'm not ever allowed to make contact with Jess. Okay. And we're not allowed to make any contact at all other than through this tether. except for in something called a leading zone. So a leading zone would be something where there's hazards on the course or there's an aid station. If there's hazards like tripping hazards or curbs, Jess can put her arm on mine, and then in case if I don't call out something properly and she maybe has a risk of tripping and falling, I can I can be there as a support person, and then she can pick up her feet, and then we can make sure that, everyone stays safe out there. But otherwise, outside of those leading zones, like we're not allowed to make contact. I cannot drag her at all. It's making sure that we're in stride with one another, going the right pace. I let Jess dictate the pace a little bit more here. Rather than like that's comparing it to the swim because, well, we can actually talk to one another now.
Right.
Versus in the swim, there's no verbal communication. It has to be all based on feel. So out here, I can let Jess dictate the pace a little bit more, and then I can tell her, where the kilometer markings are, where the other athletes are, where we are in the course, where the aid stations are, and then just guide her through and tell her, what going left, we're going right, we're going up, we're going down, the turnaround's coming, we got to do a 180 here, everything that you need to kind of run around a run course.
So much communication. There's a
So
lot that
much.
goes into
It's a
this.
lot of
Not just
talking.
doing your activities. It's
No.
a whole nother level to it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a really, really close relationship the entire time that you're out there. Very trusting. Yeah, it has to be clear communication the entire time, because also when you're working that hard, you're not necessarily thinking straight all the time.
Mhm.
Athletes will talk about kind of going into the box or going into the red zone or seeing red when you're not thinking very clearly. You're just putting one foot in front of the other and just managing to keep going. Versus what Jess and I have to do is we have to be in that red zone, but we also have to be completely mentally clear because we're completely trusting one another to get through this course safely together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have so much trust into you as well, navigating them through, right?
Exactly.
And it's so inspiring. It's so
Yeah.
phenomenal. Is there any advice you'd give to someone who might be listening who's like, that sounds amazing. How do I get involved? What
Yeah.
kind of steps there are?
I think first step would just be get out there and start moving. Find someone that you can work with. Usually, like, I find friends and family members who might be willing to go for a run with you, or if you can get your hands on a tandem bike, go for some bike rides. Just give it a go and see if you enjoy doing those sports. And if you enjoy doing it, then there's a lot more access, or we're trying to make it a lot more accessible at the provincial level to connect with your like provincial triathlon organization and be able to go and sign up for a race and just tell the race director like, hey, I have this disability. I'm in this paratriathlon class. These are the things that I need to make this race accessible to me. And then right now we're actually trying to get a lot more resources out there to make it a lot more accessible for the race directors, to make it accessible for the athletes. Try out a race if you can, or just contact your provincial race organization, and then they can get you in contact with people up at like, Triathlon Canada and our para development stream. And we can see what we can do to get you more involved in the sport.
That's
But,
perfect.
yeah.
That's great. Thanks for shining a light on it and really being such an inspiring person for
Of
this.
course.
Is there a moment with you and Jess that you're like, this was probably top 1 or top 2 moments out of our career that, really stands
Man,
out to you? I'm sure there's a bunch.
There's
but-
so many good moments. I think probably one of my favorite moments, and going to be the one that I'm always gonna remember, is it actually ended up being the last race that we ever did together. But it was last year in Long Beach, California, and it was a World Cup race, and it was the first race that we broke the tape together and won together. That race, we had, I think, the best swim that Jess and I ever did together. The swim was, as a guide, I always found the swim the hardest portion for me. I don't come from a swim background. It's something I've learned as like being in triathlon, versus Jess comes from a swim background. So she's a much better swimmer than I am. And so guiding for the swim portion for me was always pretty tough, but we found some sort of rhythm in the swim that time that we were swimming so well together, and we had one of the fastest swims we've ever done together. We got onto the bike and both our legs just felt really, really good that day. And it was a course that was really good for us with some hills, lots of tight turns. And we were so in sync on the pedal strokes together that day, just so in sync with each other that we biked so fast. It was so fun. And our run too just put down one of the best runs I think I've ever seen her do. And for her, the run is probably the toughest part.
Okay.
For me, the swim's the toughest part. For her, the run was the toughest part. And she put her head down and ran so well, so relaxed, so strong. And then we ended up breaking the tape together that day. And it was against some athletes who we had previously lost to, but instead we went and beat them by like a minute this race.
Wow.
Just because we were so strong and so in sync, and we both were able to really show up that day. And it was, I don't know, there's just some photos of us crossing the finish line, and like the elation on our faces was just
I think
incredible.
I've seen some of the photos.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I know it was a while ago, but congratulations. That's that
Thank
feeling
you.
and probably accomplishing it together and just everything you've gone through, what we've just talked about for the past few moments. And it's just like to have that moment must have just been like,
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
In an individual sport, if you have a good day, everything for you has to go right. In a team sport like paratriathlon with guiding, you and your guide have to be completely aligned to have a good day. And you can do all the race prep that you want and, troubleshoot all you want. And you can be a really resilient pair and constantly put forward like really good performances. But coming out with that one that's just that level up when you've done everything right and you're both just feeling really good that day, that happened that day. And it was just like, stars aligned, things came together. It was an incredible performance.
And your last race, you said.
And it was our last race together.
One. So you finished off like as best as you can.
We really did.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Yeah. And now Jess is retired, so you're taking a pause and you're not guiding currently right now.
Not guiding, yeah.
And there's so much more you do too. And I remember when we had the Women and Girls in Sport night, Catherine Davies, who's actually was our very first podcast episode.
Yeah.
She is absolutely phenomenal. I adore her so much. She was a mentor to me, one of the most inspiring women that I've ever met.
Yeah, she's pretty great.
When she noticed that you came, she turned to me, she's like, that's Emma. She's like, I love Emma.
Oh.
She's at my swimming where they go at the pool.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. Of course Catherine goes, because I know Catherine does swimming. And of course you guys know each other. And I was just like, what a perfect connection. So talk to me about your coaching as well and what you do.
So I've been coaching for 2.5 years now. I don't do any programming, so that would be like writing workouts or writing training plans. I work with a local triathlon or like Masters Triathlon Club. It's called Pinnacle Fitness. And they have noon hour and evening swims for 1 hour every day of the week, actually, at Commonwealth Pool for for like Masters athletes. Masters is in, we're not like junior, although it's really open to any age.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a master's program, and we just do noon hour swim. So I've been coaching that noon hour swim for 2.5 years now. I'm doing it. I started recently doing some of their bike workouts as well, but it's just, I got connected with the owner of that through actually triathlon, and he was looking for more people to lead their swims. And then it was something that I kind of jumped into and discovered I really like working with people and helping them out with their stroke technique, helping them out with whether it's their pacing or just swimming in general. It's a really lovely group of people as well. They're some of like the nicest people that I've met, and I just love showing up on deck and working with these guys every week and helping them get better their sport. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's phenomenal. And it's just probably so nice to have someone like yourself who's been through it all and who knows the techniques, because swimming can be intimidating, right? If you don't come from a swimming, it's also very like individual, obviously. So it's learning it. So being able to be like a nice, safe, calm, positive environments can go so far.
And we have lanes for like all abilities. We go from athletes who are just really getting into swimming, and then to athletes who've been swimming for quite a while. And we have like quite a range of abilities and speeds. So there's really a place for everyone, and everyone is just so welcoming. It's just an incredible community.
Yeah, and Commonwealth's a great pool too.
I've always liked it. It's so nice. Yeah. It's like a world-class facility. I swim there all the time. It's wonderful.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so while you're doing all of this, you were at University of Victoria.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. What was it like balancing your schoolwork as well as training as a competitive athlete?
Always a work in progress is probably what the only thing I can say there. You're busy almost around the clock. You're getting up most mornings to go to the pool or to go for a run, and then I go to class, and then probably do a workout midday, go back to class, or I'd go to class for a longer amount of time and go back and do another workout in the evening, go home, have dinner, study, do some homework, go to bed, do it all over again. I think there was a lot of ebb and flow of how busy I was based on my schedule. Some semesters are heavier than others. I was also in a science degree, so I did a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology with honors as well.
Wow.
So some semesters I had a bunch of labs as well as lectures, and so it was quite busy, and it was kind of just getting through the 4 months, trying to stay healthy, trying not to get sick, trying not to get injured, trying to keep my grades up, and really just you're training as much as you can. I'd train more in the summer, usually in a little bit, sometimes more of a Christmas, just because I only had a certain amount of a capacity that I could put in during those busier semesters. What I was really lucky to do, though, in my last 2.5 years of my undergrad was that I started doing research as well. So I would do three classes, and then my fourth course would be a research course, and that was completely self-directed. So I would meet with my supervisor, usually once a week, and then we'd meet for an hour with my other classmates, quote unquote, who were doing their own research projects, but in the same group as me. And so that lightened my classical load in a sense that I had less hours I needed to be at the university to attend a lecture, but it also gave me that flexibility and that independence to do work on my own time and really pursue projects that I was really passionate about. And I was super lucky that I kind of got into that, that I even was able to get involved into that research, because I originally had a friend who was volunteering in the research lab I ended up doing research in, and he was graduating, and he said, well, there's a spot open in the lab. If you'd like to volunteer, I think you'd be a really great fit for this. So I volunteered at the lab for 6 or 7 months, and then after that I was offered a spot there as a student to be a directed studies researcher. And so I did a year of directed studies, which is research. And then I did a year of honor study. And then I did one more directed study just to finish my credits off because I needed some more classes. But also because I really loved the lab and loved the type of learning we could do there. And that really developed the love of research that I have now. And as I've just graduated from my undergrad, I'm planning on starting a master's next year.
Wow.
So, that really set to a change in kind of my career pathway, I would say, for getting involved in that research and really enjoying it, and then deciding hey, this is actually something I want to spend more time with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's next for you then is to continue on with your
Yeah.
studies, and
Yes.
what's the main goal that you would like to get to?
I would like to work in physiology as a sports physiologist. I've worked with sports physiologists with Canadian Sport Institute throughout my years working with Jess and with the para team, and they were invaluable in helping us out with whether it was just fitness testing or managing high altitude training camps, or we would do heat blocks where we would train in a very hot room before going to a hot race, and that would be to adapt our bodies to being able to handle high temperatures. So we did lots of different things for training, and the sports physiologists were always there, monitoring us, helping us, taking data, helping us understand the data, helping us understand our fitness and how we reacted to those different stressors that we were putting on our bodies. And being in research and being a kinesiologist from my undergrad, I just found their job and what they were helping us with absolutely fascinating. So I would like to do my master's it'll be in a mix of physiology and neuroscience is what I'm planning on doing.
Amazing. Look at you go.
Thank you. It's really exciting. I'm so excited to get started next year.
Yeah.
And then my ideal pathway is that this master's will lead me into a role that I can work as a physiologist. And maybe I'll do a PhD at some point. I want to get some years in the industry though, and working directly with athletes. And then a PhD can be done anytime.
Right.
So
yeah, get that experience.
Exactly.
And you can go back. That is so inspiring. Wow.
Thank you.
Just everything you've done, even just the guiding, the coaching, your schooling, is
Thank
just
you.
super phenomenal. And for anyone that's listening to who's going through something similar, I think it's great to see the pathway that you're going
Thank you.
Yeah, to help others.
In my last year with Triathlon Canada, I was actually able to get, I was supported with some resources to be able to create a education initiative for youth, like developing and adolescent athletes, and it was supported within Triathlon Canada as Triathlon Canada's, I guess their long-term goals going forward is to create more resources and more knowledge in the triathlon community for that are going to help support athletes in like their longevity, their health, and their wellness. And a topic that I was really interested in, or am interested in, and is actually going to be really central to what I want to do my master's project on, is it's a athlete health condition called relative energy deficiency in sport, and it's essentially this condition where when athletes don't eat enough food and don't get enough nutrition and enough energy for their bodies, their health can actually start to take like a kind of a downturn, and their performance can plateau, and it can lead to some really serious long-term health consequences. And so last year I was targeted to work on creating an education initiative for adolescent and like developing athletes to educate them on what REDS is, how to manage it, how to avoid it, how to get out of it. So that would be the one thing that also I'm really, really, proud of and doing and still working on. And it's been something that I've been able to roll out to the Triathlon Canada community through some webinars, and I've worked with a softball team. I'm going to work with a wrestling team soon. We've done a cycling team as well as some private schools around Victoria, and just doing webinars for developing athletes. And so, I mean, it may be a bit of a plug here, but I'm still presenting, and I'm still reaching out to the community and trying to just spread this knowledge and spread this awareness and be a resource for athletes and for coaches as someone that they can bring in to give their athletes and their parents that knowledge so they can just learn how to take care of their bodies for the long run in sport.
Well, it's such an important topic too, right? And I don't think it gets covered as much as it should.
No, it doesn't.
In all ages, but especially in youth.
Yeah.
Especially like the training that I've gone through for coaching and whatnot is, unless you take that, you don't really, or you're competitive athlete and have lived through it and have someone like yourself who's explaining it to you and teaching you, you don't realize that it's not just the sport and it's like, okay, I'm training and it's hard training and it's everything else you do, the recovery, the pre, the post, the what you're putting in your body, the amount of times that some of my athletes come and they haven't ate before or they didn't have a good dinner before the night before, just all of it, and it's like that is such a wealth of knowledge for people to have. So I think it's so important to have someone like yourself and just to keep spreading it, and you learn so much, and it does make such a huge difference. And like you said, like there's repercussions down the road, health, long-term ones that if you don't follow it. So it's fantastic that you're doing it and you have the passion, and definitely anything you let me know, and I'd love to share it too and support in any way, because it definitely is a very important topic, and I think we can all learn from it too, like even as like older athletes.
It applies around the world. The center of it is just fueling your body properly by eating enough food and eating nutritious food, but the key thing being enough food, because there's such a strong culture in sports surrounding just the idea that lighter and leaner is going to be faster, but light and lean bodies that aren't healthy and aren't functioning and aren't recovering and are underfueled, they have and their hormones are disrupted, their bone health is going downhill because they're not fueling themselves enough. It can become such a problem long term, and it's just, you're right, there's just not enough education out there, there's not enough awareness out there, there's not athletes will experience all these symptoms that can come from this condition, and they don't even know that it's because they're not eating enough, because it's like, I'm getting sick all the time. Who would have thought that getting sick all the time, it could actually be a symptom of not eating enough? Right. But it's just this myriad of symptoms that come around that people are just not aware of what it is, what it's being caused by, and then also like the long-term health consequences. So we're trying to I'm trying to go forward with Triathlon Canada's help to start better educating this next generation of coaches and of athletes, so they can just set up everyone for better success in the long run and better health and longevity in the long run.
Well, thank you for doing that. Yes, please let me know if there's any way to support and to help out, because it's truly such a It'll make such a
Oh.
big impact.
Thank you. I mean, we can pop the link into the show notes of
Totally.
recorded webinars or contact in the show notes or
Absolutely,
something.
for sure.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
awesome.
last question to wrap it
Yeah,
up.
totally.
Any last advice that you'd give to any athletes, anyone, just about kind of who's interested in following a similar journey like you?
It's the whole classic, and I don't want to sound super lightweight about it, but follow your passions. But it's truly finding something that really excites you, but then also sticking to it and showing up every day with your your best effort, being that person who is reliable, being that person who is always going to show up, being the person who puts forth good quality work, getting involved in those spaces that are exciting to you and that you're passionate about, and then being a performer, pretty much, whether it's an academic performer or an athletic performer, and putting your best foot forward, because you're able to combine hard work as well as with what you're passionate about. People in those spaces and around you will notice that, and they will want you to stay there, and they will help you forward in that space. And that's what I found in triathlon, in my schooling, in coaching, that loving what I'm doing and then also just showing up every day and putting a really good foot forward every day has been a thing that people around me have noticed, and they've supported me to continue in those pathways. And those are the reasons why I think I've gotten to the places and to the levels I've gotten in where I've gone, is because it's that combination of just passion and showing up every day. That would be my biggest thing. Yeah, my best my advice. Yeah. Show up every day. Yeah.
That's perfect. Show up every day.
Yeah.
Oh, Emma, thank you so much for coming in. It's
Thank you
been
for having me.
amazing hearing your story. I have never heard a story like that, and just everything you've done in the community. You're such a role model for everyone. So thank you so much for coming on Her Love of Sports.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
For more information on Her Love of Sports, visit herloveofsports.com or on our social at Her Love of Sports.